Hello everyone, Spartan Bodhi here, welcome to the next video. Since we covered a lot in the intro in the last video, let's go ahead and jump right on in. We're going to jump back in and finish our races episode. This will be part 2 of the 2 videos needed in order to understand all of the races found in the player's handbook. So to recap from our last episode, we talked about the first 4 races as they're presented in the player's handbook. Those were, as we presented them, Dwarf, Elf, Halfling, and Human. And in this video, we're going to jump into the last 5 as they're presented. Dragonborn, Gnome, Half-Elf, Half-Orc, and Tiefling. The last 5 races as they're presented in the player's handbook are much rarer than the first 4. They're likely to be the more common races found in the world that you're playing in. However, as an adventurer, you don't have to be a common person. In fact, if you were a commoner, you'd probably die pretty quickly. You're an adventurer, which means you get to pick whatever you want. So jumping in, let's talk about Dragonborn. Born of dragons, as their name proclaims, the Dragonborn walk proudly through the world that greets them with fearful incomprehension. Shaped by draconic gods or the dragons themselves, Dragonborn originally hatched from dragon eggs as a unique race, combining the best attributes of dragons and humanoids. Though lacking wings and tail, the Dragonborn very much so resemble dragons. The first Dragonborn had scales of vibrant hues matching the colors of their dragon kin, but generations of interbreeding have created a more uniform appearance. Their small, fine scales are usually brass or bronze in color, sometimes ranging to scarlet, rust, gold, or copper green. They are tall and strongly built, often standing close to 6.5 feet tall and weighing 300 pounds or more. Their hands and feet are strong, talon-like claws with 3 fingers and a thumb on each hand. The blood of a particular type of dragon runs very strong through some Dragonborn clans. These Dragonborn often boast scales that much more closely match those of their draconic ancestry. Bright red, green, blue, or white, lustrous black, or gleaming metallic gold, silver, brass, copper, or bronze. So most of that is just the description and understanding of the Dragonborn as it's laid out. All of that, and we haven't even gotten into the actual mechanics yet. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Ability score increase. Your strength score increases by 2, and your charisma score increases by 1. Now, whereas in the last video, the +1 was all determinant on the subtype, that is not the case with Dragonborn. Though there are subtypes of Dragonborn, each one gets a +2 to strength and a +1 to charisma, as it's laid out in the player's handbook. If you have something like Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, that's a book that was authored by Matthew Mercer, the Dungeon Master of Critical Role, and the publishing team of Wizards of the Coast. They're the company that owns Dungeons & Dragons. He gives you a couple more options in terms of what kind of Dragonborn you can be. Those are super cool. I really like what he does with them, but they're not laid out in the handbook, so we won't be talking about them just yet. Maybe in another video. Let me know in the comments below if that sounds interesting to you. Age. Young Dragonborn grow quickly. They walk hours after hatching, attain the size and development of a 10-year-old human by the age of 3, and reach adulthood by 15. They only live approximately 80 years. So, similar lifespan to that of a human, but they do mature much faster. Size. Dragonborn are taller and heavier than humans, standing well over 6 feet tall and averaging almost 250 pounds. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Draconic ancestry. You have draconic ancestry. It's redundant, I know. Choose one type of dragon from the draconic ancestry table. Your breath, weapon, and damage resistance are determined by the dragon type, as shown in the table. Aha! Here's where the sub-races come into play. Each one of those colors represents a different kind of dragon, as it can be found in the worlds of Dungeons & Dragons. And most dragons, as we see them depicted in film or books, have the ability to breathe fire, right? Well, all of that is actually determinant on the color of your dragon in Dungeons & Dragons. And dragons are split into 2 groups. You have the chromatic colors, red, blue, green, black, and white, or the metallic colors, gold, silver, bronze, copper, and brass. Those of chromatic background are more typically known as evil dragons, and those of metallic are good dragons. This is getting into alignment, which I actually think we'll cover a little bit at the end of this video, as it kind of might pertain to the last race found in the PHB specifically. So that being said, each of those colors actually determines which element that dragon produces when it uses its breath weapon. And as a Dragonborn, you get a breath weapon too. I know, it's pretty awesome. Breath weapon. You can use your action to exhale destructive energy. Your draconic ancestry determines the size, shape, and damage type of the exhalation. When you use your breath weapon, each creature in the area of the exhalation must make a saving throw, the type of which is determined by your draconic ancestry. The DC for the saving throw equals 8 plus your constitution modifier, plus your proficiency bonus. A creature takes 2d6 damage on a failed save and half as much on a successful one. The damage increases to 3d6 at 6th level, 4d6 4d6 at 11th level, and 5d6 at 16th level. Let's talk about what those types of breath weapons are. If you choose a black dragon to be your ancestor, then your damage type is acid damage. You would spew a line of acid 5 feet wide by 30 feet long. This would require a dexterity saving throw to avoid most of the damage, hence dodging out of the way. If you choose a blue dragon for your ancestor, then your damage is lightning, which is also a 5 foot wide by 30 foot long line, also requiring a dexterity saving throw. If you choose brass, which would be a good dragon, then your type is fire, and it is also a line 30 feet long by 5 foot wide, requiring a dexterity save. If you choose bronze, this would be a good dragon, then your damage type is also lightning, and a 5 foot wide line by 30 feet long, dexterity saving throw. Or if you choose copper, then your damage type is acid, also the 5 by 30 foot line, still requiring a dexterity saving throw. Now, if you choose gold, the strongest of the good dragons, then your damage type is fire. However, this time it is a 15-foot cone instead of a line, still requiring a dexterity saving throw to avoid the damage. Or if you choose a green dragon, this would be an evil dragon, then your damage type is poison. This also is a 15-foot cone, but requires a constitution saving throw. Or if you choose a red dragon, this would be the strongest of the chromatic dragons or evil dragons, then this is also going to be a 15-foot cone requiring a dexterity save. And the last two both have the same element, which is cold damage. And these dragons are silver and white. Silver being the second strongest dragon of the good aligned metallic dragons, and white usually being one of the weakest of the chromatic dragons. But both offer you a 15-foot cone and a constitution save to withstand the effects of great cold on your body, as opposed to jumping out of the way of fire. Now, interestingly enough, along with this breath weapon, you also gain a free damage resistance. This damage resistance is exactly the same as the breath weapon that you have. So if you choose a red dragon as your ancestor, you're going to have all incoming fire damage to yourself, as you have fire resistance. Lastly are the languages. You can read, speak, and write Common and Draconic. And as it talks about here for the first time, Draconic is thought to be the oldest of languages and often used in the study of magic. I think that's kind of cool. In my game, usually if you're speaking magic, it is the Draconic language, whether or not your character fully understands it. They can memorize certain lines and phrases of it. They don't have to have a full understanding of the language itself. But most of the magic in my worlds are Draconic. This brings us to the next creatures, gnomes. What halflings are to humans, gnomes are to elves. They are far shorter, usually between 3.5 feet tall, and around 40-45 pounds. They're small, and we'll kind of cover most of that other stuff, but these creatures live anywhere between 3 and 5 centuries, and gnomes are super fun. These incredibly curious creatures always are looking for the next party, although their definition of party might be different, taking in the world around them and just curious. As far as gnomes are concerned, being alive is a wonderful thing, and they squeeze every ounce of enjoyment out of their 3 to 5 centuries of life as they can. Gnomes speak as if they can't get thoughts out of their heads fast enough, and even though they offer ideas and opinions on a range of subjects, they still manage to listen carefully to others, adding the appropriate exclamations of surprise or exultation along the way. Gnome traits. Your intelligence score increases by 2. Age. Gnomes mature at the same rate that humans do, but most are expected to settle down into an adult life by around 40. They can live between 350 to 500 years old. Size. They are between 3 and 4 feet tall and average around 40 pounds. Your size is small. Speed. You have a base walking speed of 25 feet. Dark vision. Accustomed to life underground, you have superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see dim light within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light, and darkness as if it were dim light. You can't discern colors in darkness, only shades of gray. Gnome cunning. You have advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws versus magic. Now that's pretty cool. If a magical spell is targeting you, you have advantage on the save if that save requires intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So you're not more likely to get out of the way of the fireball. However, if someone's trying to charm you, you have advantage on that saving throw. Remember that, it's important. Languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Gnomish. The Gnomish language, which uses the Dwarvish script, is renowned for its technical treatises and catalogs of knowledge about the natural world. Subraces. 2 subraces of gnome are found amongst the worlds of D&D: forest gnomes and rock gnomes. Choose one of the following. Forest gnome. Your dexterity score increases by 1. Natural illusionist. You know the minor illusion cantrip. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability for it. So that means you learn a free spell. Remember, cantrips are the lowest level forms of magic and don't require anything really of you. You can keep casting them over and over again. You get a free one if you choose the forest gnome. Speak with small beasts. Through sounds and gestures, you can communicate simple ideas with small or smaller beasts. Forest gnomes love animals and often keep squirrels, badgers, rabbits, moles, woodpeckers, and other creatures as beloved pets. Rock gnome. Ability score increase. Your constitution score increases by 1. If you were going to play a wizard, a rock gnome gives you a +2 to intelligence, which is your primary spellcasting ability, and a +1 to constitution. That can help you maintain concentration on your spells and potentially give you more health than what the wizard can offer you. Solid synergy if you're looking to maximize your characters. Artificer's Lore. Whenever you make an intelligence history check related to magical items, alchemical objects, or technological advices, you can add twice your proficiency bonus instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Tinker. You have proficiency with artisan's tools, specifically Tinker's tools. Using these tools, you can spend 1 hour and 10 gold pieces worth of materials to construct a tiny clockwork device. This device ceases to function after 24 hours unless you spend 1 hour repairing it to keep the device functioning, or when you use your action to dismantle it. At that time, you can reclaim the materials used to create it. You can have up to 3 such devices active at a time. When you create a device, choose one of the following options: clockwork toy, fire starter, or music box. All 3 of these things have no mechanical benefit, but are completely up to you to improv with the DM and the rest of the party at the table. Honestly, this is one of my favorite gnomes. All of the possibilities that are there are completely up to your imagination as to how you would use these little clockwork toys, music boxes, or fire starters to interact with the world around you. Have fun! Half-elves. Walking 2 worlds, but truly belonging to neither. Half-elves combine what some say are the best qualities of their elf and human parents: human curiosity, inventiveness, and ambition tempered by the refined senses, love of nature, and artistic taste of the elves. To humans, half-elves look like elves. To elves, half-elves look like humans. In height, they're on par with both their parents, though neither as slender as the elves nor as broad as humans. Half-elf traits. Your charisma score increases by 2, and 2 other ability scores of your choice increase by 1. This is again one of those rarer moments when you actually get a +4 in terms of your total ability score increases. Now, charisma always goes up by 2 for a half-elf, but the other 2 +1s that you get are solely up to you. You can customize half-elves to be capable of playing just about any class out there. It's pretty awesome. Age. Half-elves mature at the same rate as humans do, and reach adulthood around the age of 20, though they live much longer than their human counterparts, often around ages of 180. Size. Half-elves are about the same size as humans, ranging from 5 to 6 feet tall. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Dark vision. Again, we're getting 60 feet of dark vision, and it pretty much always says the same thing about you can see dim light as bright light and no light as dim light, with shades of gray for coloration. All that aside, you get 60 feet of dark vision, which is pretty fantastic. Fey ancestry. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, that's pretty good, and magic cannot put you to sleep. Remember that. There are certain spells that can cause your character to fall into slumber. Elves and half-elves cannot suffer that magic. The rules say so explicitly. Skill versatility. You gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. This is another one of those amazing traits you get as a half-elf. When we get to the episode on backgrounds and roleplay and things like that, you'll see that picking a history for your character, kind of the things that they grew up doing, will automatically provide you with 2 skill proficiencies of your choice. If you're choosing a half-elf, you get another bonus 2 skill proficiencies before you even make it to your class, which will often provide at least 2 or 3. So you're looking at a total of at least 6 or 7 skills that you will start the game with as a half-elf. That's pretty useful depending on the class that you're going with. Languages. You can read, write, and speak Common, Elvish, and 1 extra language of your choice. Which leads us to the other kind of hybrid humans are capable of producing. Half-orcs. Half-orcs' greenish to gray pigmentation, sloping foreheads, jutting jaws, prominent teeth, and towering builds make their orcish lineage plain for all to see. Half-orcs stand between 5 and 7 feet tall and usually weigh between 180 and 250 pounds. Orcs regard battle scars as tokens of pride, and ornamental scars as a thing of beauty. Other scars, though, mark an orc or half-orc as a former slave or a disgraced exile. Any half-orc who has lived among or near orcs has scars, whether they are marks of humiliation or of pride, recounting their past exploits and injuries. Such a half-orc living among humans might display these scars proudly, or hide them in shame. Half-orc traits. Ability score increase. Your strength score increases by 2, and your constitution score increases by 1. Age. Half-orcs mature a little faster than humans, reaching adulthood around the age of 14. They age noticeably faster and rarely live longer than 75 years. Size. Half-orcs are somewhat larger and bulkier than humans, and they range from 5 to well over 6 feet tall. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Dark vision. Thanks to your orc blood, you have superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You have dark vision out to 60 feet. Menacing. You gain proficiency with the intimidation skill. Here's another one of those awesome moments where you automatically get a skill proficiency right off the bat for choosing your race. The intimidation skill would be all about coercing your foes, or potential allies, into something by using force. Either forceful words or threats, or by brandishing a weapon. That's up to you. Relentless endurance. difference. When you are reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. After using this feature, you cannot use it again until completing a long rest. Short rests and long rests are something we'll cover more in depth in the adventuring episode. But for now, a short rest would be an hour in which your character is doing little to light activity and usually having a little snack and some water. This allows some classes to recover some of their abilities or perhaps some HP, whereas a long rest is 8 hours long and requires typically sleep, a meal, and doing no activity whatsoever. So once you use this feature, you have to undergo an 8-hour long rest before you can use it again. Be careful with it. Savage attacks. When you score a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, which would be hand-to-hand weapons, you can roll one of the weapon's damage dice one additional time and add it to the extra damage of the critical hit. Critical hits are typically a big deal. This would be a natural 20 on your d20 die roll when you're in combat, swinging or shooting a weapon, or using a spell. We will cover critical hits in the combat episode far later on. Orcs do even more damage than your standard folk when it comes to rolling a critical hit. Languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Orc. Orc is a harsh, grating language with hard consonants. It has no script of its own, but is written in the Dwarvish script. So that's 3 languages that actually use the Dwarvish script. Dwarvish, Gnomish, and Orcish. How those scripts are used, though, are going to look different. If you can read Dwarvish, you'll be able to see the letters that are used in Orcish, but it's not going to make sense to you. Same with Gnomish, and vice versa. This brings us to our last race, Tieflings. To be greeted with stares and whispers, to suffer violence and insult on the street, to see mistrust and fear in every eye. This is the lot of the Tiefling. Tieflings are derived from human bloodlines, and in the broadest possible sense, look human. However, their infernal heritage has left a clear imprint on their appearance. Tieflings have large horns that take a variety of shapes, some with curling horns like a ram, others with straight and tall horns like a gazelle, and some spiral upward like an antelope's horns. They have thick tails, 4 to 5 feet long, which lash and coil around their legs when they get upset or nervous. Their canine teeth are sharply pointed, and their eyes are solid colors, black, red, white, silver, and gold, with no visible sclera or pupil. Their skin tones cover a full range of human coloration, but also include various shades of red and purples. Their hair, cascading down from behind their horns, is usually dark, from black to brown to dark red, blue, or purple. As laid out in the player's handbook, Tieflings are a cursed people that are born of humans. But this curse comes from their ancestors a long time ago who struck deals with devils. Now, if this is uncomfortable to you, please ask yourself, why? Your Tiefling character didn't choose to be born Tiefling. They were born Tiefling. This could be all the reason they need to adventure, to try and forgive some past debt, or to break the cycle, or to try and prove that how one is born is not an indicator of who they will turn out to be. I think we could use more of those messages in this day and age. The player's handbook also reads this. People tend to be suspicious of Tieflings, assuming that their infernal heritage has left its mark on their personality and morality, not just their appearance. Shopkeepers keep a close eye on their goods when Tieflings enter their stores. The town watch might follow a Tiefling around for a while, and demagogues blame Tieflings for strange happenings. The reality, though, is that a Tiefling's bloodline doesn't affect his or her personality to any great degree. Years of dealing with mistrust does leave its mark on most Tieflings, and they respond to it in different ways. Some choose to live up to the wicked stereotypes, but others are virtuous. Most are simply very aware of how people respond to them. After dealing with this mistrust through youth, a Tiefling often develops the ability to overcome prejudice through charm or intimidation. This again speaks all sorts of volumes to the culture in which a Tiefling would be raised. If their bloodline has nothing to do with who they are or their personality, then what they are told, how they are treated, and what is expected of them will have everything to do with it. It's up to you to decide this for yourself. What does this mean for my character if I choose to be Tiefling? Now, with all of this extra baggage comes also some very incredible power. Tiefling traits. Ability score increase. Your intelligence score increases by 1, and your charisma score increases by 2. Age. Tieflings mature at the same rate as humans, but live a few years longer. So, still potentially a century, but they're not going to age quite as fast as humans. Size. Tieflings are about the same size and build as humans. Your size is medium. Speed. Your base walking speed is 30 feet. Dark vision. Thanks to your infernal heritage, you have dark vision, out to 60 feet. Hellish resistance. You have resistance to fire damage. There's another one, right off the bat, resistance to a damage type, without having to take anything else. Infernal legacy. You know the Thaumaturgy cantrip. When you are 3rd level, you can cast the Hellish Rebuke spell as a 2nd level spell once with this trait and regain the ability to do so after a long rest. When you reach 5th level, you can cast the Darkness spell once with this trait. You regain the ability to cast it again after you finish another long rest. Charisma is your spell casting ability for these spells. And languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Infernal. So now I think comes the actual conversation about alignment. That's a little section that I skipped with just about every single race because I think alignment has more to do with the choices you make rather than how, when, and to whom you're born to. There are other D&D channels that have covered this with entire episodes dedicated to just the subject of alignment. But to break it down for those of you who have never heard it before, alignment is a spectrum on which your character views the world. And that spectrum has actually two different axes. The first one leans between good and evil. This is one that most of us usually understand, with neutral falling in between. Those that are good are going to be more altruistic. They're going to do good things and not hurt people. Whereas evil alignment is typically more selfish or downright gruesome in terms of its treatment of other people. Neutral is willing to do both and is ultimately self-serving, depending on the need and the moment for the neutral character. Or at least it could be. This is how I kind of interpret it. The other spectrum is from lawful to chaotic, and blends in with the first. So lawful being the understanding that you're going to follow the laws of the land as they're laid out, and you're going to stick to them, regardless of whether they're good, evil, or neutral. And chaotic might mean more the opposite. It doesn't matter what the laws are, you're going to do what you think is right because you should be free to choose what is right for you and your character, and the people around you. And when the two blend, we see some interesting results. So for instance, you can certainly be lawful, but you can also be evil. Tyranny is lawful evil. Or if you're chaotic, that doesn't mean that you're evil, it just means that you're anti-law. Robin Hood was doing good things, but was also breaking the law at the same time. Robbing the rich to feed the poor? That's chaotic good. Some people would believe that tieflings have a certain lot or role to play, and with their infernal bloodline, they're going to be evil. That's not the case. It says so in the alignment section. Tieflings might not have an innate tendency towards evil, but many of them may end up there. Evil or not, an independent nature inclines many tieflings towards a chaotic alignment. So just because their lineage is cursed by an evil being, that doesn't mean that they themselves are evil. If they choose evil acts, some might blame the system. There are a lot of parallels that we can draw to today's political climate. I would hope that as human beings, we can see past the color of each other's skin in order to assume the best in each other, to love rather than to hate, and to be curious rather than to wish to just be right. All right, I think that's it. That covers most of everything we really need to talk about as far as races go. Now remember, there are a lot more races to choose from. If you pick up Volo's Guide to Monsters, you'll see a bunch of new races. Arakakra, Asamar, Goliath, Kenku, and then some others that you'll find in the Monster Manual. Lizard folk, hobgoblins, goblins, orcs, bugbears. All of these we can cover in a later video, but I kind of wanted to cover all of the bases in the player's handbook for those that are just wishing to learn the game, i.e. the players that I'm going to be working with on a stream. I wonder, did any one of these races really speak to you? I would love to know in the comments below. Let's start a dialogue. Or if you want some more direct conversation, how about you find me on social media? I'll try and remember to put my Twitter handle and Instagram handle in the bio below. If you would hit that thumbs up button and maybe subscribe, that would really help my channel continue to grow. Thank you so very much, and I can't tell you how excited I am for us to tell stories together that can hopefully change the world for the better. Much love, friends, and as always, the adventure is calling. Are you listening?